Welcome back to the Warrior One podcast. I'm your co-host, Ben Wiggins. I also host the Mays Mastercast for Texas A&M University and Mays Business School. And I'm here with the host of the show, the man himself, Dr. Rick Fernandez. Rick, what's good?
A whole lot, particularly our guest today. I'm very excited to introduce our newest member of TMISD, Kris O'Neal.
Yeah, it's great. So just a little background on Coach O'Neal. He received his bachelor's in psychology from Abilene Christian University in 1993, completed his master's in educational administration at Lamar University in 2011. He's got certifications, mid-management, social studies, composites, secondary health, and special ed from pre-K through 12. He lettered in 3 sports in high school: football, track, and tennis. Also lettered in football in college. Has head coached boys basketball, football, JV baseball, boys track, boys wrestling, and girls wrestling. This dude has done it all. He was born in Dallas. Wife is a teacher. Both grandfathers were principals. Grandmother was a teacher. He's been around the educational world his whole life. Couldn't be more excited to talk with him.
Fantastic.
We welcome Coach Kris O'Neal to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the district.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Very excited.
Coach, let's drop a bomb right off the bat. What do you think athletic programs are still getting wrong in 2021?
One of the things we have to always remember that we're coaching people. And I think the game will overshadow that we're so focused on the outcome that we forget what drives every human being. And in my mind, it's that people want really 2 things more than anything else. And that is to fully know somebody and to be fully known, and that combination of those things. And if an athlete doesn't know that they're valuable solely because they exist, you're going to have a hard time getting full buy-in, because that's what people want the absolute most. That is the core of their being, of what they're doing. So if they know their value as a human is not dictated by their athletic ability, that will be expressed existentially, internally, implicitly, and explicitly in the performance of the program. That is the core of every human being for what they're doing. And again, it's hard. I don't disparage people for talking about wins, because that's the value that is placed on it in our culture. Wins. But if we know the core of who we're coaching, I believe wins will come when you feed people the most, essential need that they have.
Coach, talk to us a little bit about your backstory, if you don't mind.
I don't mind my backstory. This is the bio story from the existential origin story of Wolverine. There's no question I was a very active little kid, like a lot of people. Impulsive, you'd say. I think by the time I was in 2nd grade, a cousin drove over my leg. I broke a leg, broke an ankle, broke my arm, a compound fracture, in fact, of all things, playing keep away. Snapped in the backyard. It was so bad that my mother heard the bone break from the house, which was about, 50 yards away.
Whoa.
And in fact, the guy who picked me up from that, our neighbor, still lives in that same place. I saw him about a year ago, in fact. I had got Rocky Mountain spotted fever in Fort Worth, Texas. They say it's impossible. And I looked at him and go, I don't think it's impossible. I've got it. So,
that sounds like, I feel like that's something you read about in a Louis L'Amour novel or something like that. Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Well, I'm glad you survived.
I did.
And you have had a couple of experiences. You shared one with us offline last week about Disney World. There was one about a congressman. You've been in involved in a bunch of different things during your time.
Man, we got one life. Being afraid maybe is the greatest impediment to us enjoying what we do. So I was a sponsor for a Close-Up organization. Close-Up takes kids to Washington, D.C., and we get to do the whole tour of the White House and all that kind of stuff. So we were in the building where all the congressmen and women are, and somebody was in there droning on about something, and hard to believe I was bored. So I stepped out into the hallway, and the Close-Up guy was standing next to me. I said, hey, how do you know who's a congressman? And they have a little pin on their lapel. And I said, okay, hey, watch this. So this congressman walked by, and I just went, hey, man, how you doing? Kris O'Neal, yeah, Texas, good to meet you. I really appreciate you coming to that barbecue. And he just looked at me and goes, oh, you're really welcome, man. I appreciate y'all's support from Texas and da-da-da-da-da. And we talked for 5 minutes. And then I thanked him again, and he walked off, went to his office, and the closer guy was just laughing. He goes, they have no idea who they know or don't know or why. They're going to automatically pretend like they're trying to get money from you. So that's just, you're living life. It's enjoyable to interact with people like that.
Definitely. What is your greatest asset as a coach and mentor?
My diversity of experiences has really allowed me to be empathetic to almost everybody. So when you're trying to educate somebody or share a piece of knowledge with them, it's imperative that you can put yourself in their shoes. You and I talked earlier, and I'll probably share it later on, about that my parents were divorced. And so I'm at the time, obviously, as a young kid, that's not a positive experience. But in retrospect, it allows me access to a lot of people's pain and experience that I can speak to. So when somebody says, you don't know what that's like, I go, yeah, I do. I really do. And so what I'm trying to do is to get you to a place where you can either break that cycle or change. And when they see that and they understand that I do understand, they're very receptive. Educating people is about leading them down the path of knowledge, really. If anybody can experience and learn something on their own, they're going to hold on to it. They're going to keep it. We don't have to reteach something that's a foreign subject to them. And if you're talking about family dysfunction, if that's a word, that's not foreign to them. And it gives us a real insight into how people change and grow and become competent.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, how's the game of football influenced your leadership, and what has it taught you about people?
First and foremost, I was, again, a wayward youth. If you're a male and you don't have a dad, I would say female too, you're going to try to do some things. And that's all there is to it. Some of it we won't share here today, but moving on. My football coaches really mentored a lot of that stuff for me. I was actually really blessed that at certain points in my life, there was a male role model, and I can pick out all three of them, in fact, that were there to help me guide my path to a degree. But when you're talking about life, I guess in the last 2 years, the question I keep asking anybody I can come in contact with, why do we struggle? And people, take the question a different way, and they'll look at me and I say, we struggle in order to learn how to struggle well. And we've really made struggle a dirty word when, if you ask somebody, I think, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead, Ben, but one of the things I ask a lot of people, I go, tell me somebody that you respect a great deal. And they'll say, my grandmother or my grandfather or something of that nature. A single mother, I'll get on my soapbox about single mothers. They're amazing. But when they talk about what I say, who did you respect? And they'll say that person. I'll say, how come? And a lot of times they'll say, well, my grandmother raised 4 kids by herself, and she worked at the car wash, and she went to college at the same time. And I'll look at them as serious as I can. I said, so they know how to struggle with dignity and courage. And they'll look at me and go, yes, sir. I said, that's what we're doing here today. We can't replicate your mother or grandmother's experience in you, but we can replicate struggle that is beneficial. And it's not dirty. And hard work is not something to be avoided. It's a place where you're comfortable in that kind of a setting. If we teach kids how to work hard and struggle well, they're going to be successful. It's not an if. And that we were talking about what sports have done for me and that kind of interaction. It's really taught me that struggling well is really a key.
That's an interesting point of when we look to hire, whether it's coaches or teachers or administrators, and you look over the resume and you go through all of the questions, and hopefully you get them to open up and show who they really are. But we've talked a lot about, and not only in Tuloso-Midway, but in some of my former districts, when you have people that talk about their adversity and have a non-linear path to success, that's very valuable.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's what you want to instill in your kids and your students and your staff, right? That there is struggle, there's setbacks, there's all of those things. And there's no one way to get to that path of success. And so, Coach hit on it, is there's a lot of value when you're hiring, you're recruiting, you're finding the right people for your kids, is that adversity and struggle is something that should be valued.
Right. Well, and also kind of playing to that. So it seems to me that in today's world, what is most valuable is to take experience from here and experience from way over there and kind of bring those two things together.
Mhm.
Like that, to find synergy between areas that are not closely related. There seems to be a lot of value in that. But what that means is you have to start at zero here, and then you have to start at zero over here or close to it. And being able to start at zero twice or more than twice, sometimes starting at zero in 4 or 5 different places, that requires a lot of humility. And so how do you reconcile this with an era where if it isn't on Instagram and it doesn't have, 1,000 likes or 10,000 likes or, or a bunch of fire emojis on it, then did it even really happen? How do you handle the tension between this optimum way to work for athletes, for students, for people, and the dopamine rush of feeling immediate approval and appreciation from their peers and even from family members?
Yeah, that's an amazing question because it's really accurate. The example I use to try to give an example of what I consider perfect tension is I'll use a musical instrument string. If you have a string and it's just laying on the table, it will do nothing. If you have a string that's pulled too tight, you touch it, it breaks. When the string is strung to perfection, it makes beautiful music. And when we talk about those things, we try, a lot of what we're doing is we are, the movie WALL-E where they're all just sitting there in their chairs, sucking on Slurpees or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, we're just searching for safety. Everything's got to be safe. Well, life, democracy is inherently dangerous. So teaching people how to function over the circumstances is really, really important. So one of the ways I get to that, what you're asking me, is when a student, it can be an adults too, but primarily students, is upset because someone is griping at them on Facebook or Instagram or Insta whatever. I ask them, I go, okay, do you respect that person? They go, no, I don't like him at all. Okay, do you trust them? No, they're snakes. I said, okay. So why would you let somebody you don't respect or trust dictate your emotions and your feelings and your actions? And they just blink at me. I go, I'm just saying, you don't like them. You don't trust them. And one of the foundational principles I talk about, if you put your self-worth in what you do, what you own, or what people say about you, what happens when you can't do it, don't own it, and they say negative things about you? And the seniors generally say, well, I guess you'll melt down. I said, absolutely. So put your worth in the fact that you exist. You don't need another reason to be valuable. If they ever get a hold of that, and a lot of them, you'll see the spark of them going, you don't need someone to tell you that you're valuable. You're alive. If we can get them there, even going that way, a lot of the distraction, you talk about social media, goes away. Your self-worth can't be in something that you have zero control over.
Right.
And a lot of them will get that, and they'll argue with them and say, but coach, you do with this what you want. Just check it out and see if it's true for you.
Yeah. When someone and this is a question for both of you, when someone comes to you with something like this, something that's hurt them or that they're disappointed with, what's the best way to reassure them, especially very quickly? Because oftentimes you don't have much time to establish meaningful relationship with these athletes, these students. What's the best way to reassure young people that they truly can trust you with whatever it is that they're going through? How do you get through to them fast?
I think it number one, it's time and relationships, obviously. But even for my own kids, when there's something that's said or they see something negative on social media, I always ask, well, who are you? And who are we as a family?
Right.
Is this who we are? Is what they're saying true? Is that how we do business? Is that what we believe? And if all of those answers are no, this is not representative of who we are, then you got to let it go. You've got to let it go, and you've got to move on knowing with who we are, what we stand for, and how we do business. And it's the same with kids. I think that if they believe that there is somebody in their life that knows exactly who they are and what they want out of life and how to help them get that, then a lot of that ancillary, the stuff on social media won't be as impactful to them. And it's hard because they're living in a different area than we did. And we have to be cognizant of that. It's easy to say, oh, don't worry about it or let it roll off your shoulder. But we didn't have that same type of pressure. If I made a mistake in high school or college, it wasn't magnified. It was only whoever saw it at the moment.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not fair to just dismiss that offhand because I've never had to deal with it. Now I'm dealing with some as a superintendent and as a principal and different things in my career. But I always go back to who am I? What do I believe? And if that is not representative, if that's not truth about who I am, then I let it go. And that's kind of how I try to approach it with our staff, our kids, my family. Coach, what do you think?
One of the things that before anybody either shares something or accepts something from somebody else, whether I say it about someone or gossip, whatever, 2 questions. Is it true? And is it beneficial? If it doesn't meet those requirements, then we want to move away from that. And one of the things that I talk a lot about, the worst critics of everybody is themselves. I ask kids in class, I said, who do we lie to the most, kids? Some of them go, my mother. And I said, well, I don't think so. Let me try it again. Who do we lie to the most? And they go, they think, and I go, ourselves. We lie to ourselves the most. So if you're talking about a start of creating a paradigm of perfection, if there's such a thing, is it to tell yourself the truth and not putting yourself down because we are super critical, but am I accurately transmitting to myself the messages that are true, which is, again, hard to do. We're very negative in our own assessment. And we just, I can't believe I did that again, or I got another ticket, or whatever the case may be, as opposed to seeing things. Every mistake, if you want to call it a mistake, can have a benefit. So we work hard for them to see those things and get back into our theme of being able to struggle well, that we don't kneecap ourselves and handicap what we're doing by our challenges. Scars are what make us what we are. They do make us adaptable. Your point is well taken. And then you see the themes from every circumstance that are common. There are things in life that are common through everything. And if you can find those pillars, integrity, intensity, and intention, is the 3 I use, you're able to function. When things are melting down, you don't sink.
Let's talk a little bit about that. You've mentioned earlier and previously to this show, your parents' divorce and how that impacted you. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Genuinely kind of like sharing this because it really speaks to the character that was forged in me, I don't know, by my own hand, not really. So my parents were married and divorced. And then I usually pause for effect and I go, they got remarried, wait again, and re-divorced. So, oh, good job, Mom and Dad. Okay. So, we moved a million times. And when you're looking for guidance, your family unit, you don't have any say-so about how you're born, where you're born, skin color, anything like that. And so you really learn how to control the controllables. You need to put your attention on the things you have, ability to impact and affect. And again, when you're a little kid, that's really, really hard to do. One of the things I was going to be as sure as I could be that when I got married, that was it. It's not fair to the kids. They don't have a say-so about that. And so I make sure. I've been married 27 years, Rick.
I was about to say, because I do not want to get a call.
You would get a call from Lisa. That is correct.
Exactly.
My wife. I'm sure she's listening if she could be. Anyway, so there's no doubt that impact. I mean, when we see a challenge, again, we shy away from it because our ego construct of youth is necessary. And your egos are there to prevent you from imploding. So when you're talking about a kid who's you might think he's a real bad kid in class, he fights, argues, that was there to keep him or her surviving the circumstance they were in. And basically you will, get through the layers as our prefrontal cortex doesn't develop till we're 23. I don't know if anybody knew that or not, male and female, but we're not really able to make really good decisions until we're 23. And yet this person who had this trauma or difficulty, how hard is it for them to navigate that? And then you're asking to turn your homework in and whatever. So if we can put ourselves in their shoes, you really go, yeah, you don't really care about having your shirt tucked in right now, do you? No, they do not.
Mm-hmm.
So
You mentioned stability and loyalty, and those are values that have become particularly important to you as a result of this. How do you evaluate someone for that? How do you know whether they are those things?
Well, the adage when you're talking about, if you're making character and discipline synonymous, people who make the right decisions when there's no possibility of them being assessed on whether they made the right decision or not. If there were no police officers, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to speed. They're going to go as fast as they want to go. So when you're talking about these foundational parameters, we really have to get them to the point where they understand this is the best thing to do regardless. We're not trying to pit a person against an authority figure or vice versa. And when you give them example upon example about what it looks like, that character is the most beneficial thing, they'll take hold of that. But if you're talking about assessing it, generally you'll see me at a practice, or if I'm not engaged in a drill, I'll walk the periphery and see if somebody's picking up somebody else's trash or picking up somebody else's helmet. If we're talking about specifically, if they walk to the field house and kick the freaking door open because there's too much trouble to do. I said, those are the things I address. And a lot of times they don't even see that as a negative. They've never seen the world anything other than being massively egocentric. And I think Dr. Fernandez said, I don't bust kids' chops about being egocentric. You don't have to be wealthy. You just need a decent iPhone. And the entire world revolves around you. You don't even have an understanding of what it means to be selfless. Someone's got to teach them. And if we just expect them to know what selflessness is, we're the deluded ones. A kid who's never seen anybody be selfless doesn't know how. But if you're talking about how I assess it, it's really watching the student athlete while they're not in the game or while they're not being able to play. How does a kid act when he's waiting his turn, when he's not in the game? Woof, that's a big tutor.
Dr. Fernandez, how does this answer, how does this whole exercise change for a superintendent who's, looking at, thousands of students versus a coach who has, to a degree, the luxury of dealing with a much smaller group? How does that a whole series of evaluations change, and what do those interactions look like?
So number one, hiring is the big piece. The hiring, the recruiting, making sure you find highly talented people to support your kids. And if you notice, we haven't talked very much football at all, because first and foremost, Coach O'Neal is a teacher and he's a mentor, and then he's a football coach, right? So I have to have people with the foundation of I'm a teacher and a guide and a mentor, and oftentimes a father, a grandfather, mother, whatever the situation calls for our kids. And if we approach that with everything that we do, from every hire that we make, and you assure yourself that you have those type of individuals in your district, a lot of those things in terms of support or social emotional learning take care of themselves, because you got the right people to lead that work. And where our center is. It's about kids and their well-being, and then everything else after that. But you have to have that lens as you're supporting employees as well, right? The discomfort, I talk a lot about discomfort is good. It's good for our staff. It's good for me. But there's an optimum level of discomfort. It's too much and it breaks. And if it's too little, then we don't grow. So finding the balance of how comfortable are we, and is that inhibiting us from growing as a district, as a staff, and growing our kids. So the main thing for me is finding great people to mentor and teach and coach our kids. And if I can do that at a high level, then we'll be very successful.
I love that. Now let's be sports nerds for a moment.
Okay.
I didn't prep either of you for this.
That's all right.
But what are you guys most excited about TMISD athletics, and specifically the football team this fall? What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I can't tell you how many athletes have already just come into the office just excited to do something a little different. They want to know how to be good. Well, okay. That's what you need right there. The playbook is already made. The teaching progression is done. as far as from my end. So now we're going to start implementing that to get to see something grow from scratch. One of the greatest benefits of being a coach is, I don't know if there's anything else, and Coach Fernandez would understand too, if you have a sophomore team or a varsity team, it doesn't matter, to watch a kid exponentially change from 4 weeks ago to going, and look at a kid go, man, he ain't never going to play. 5 weeks later, hey, that's your starting quarterback. and just to watch them embrace that kind of role. And when you get those foundational characteristics, as long as your X and O's are on the right page, they're going to excel. And when they understand that if I continue in this consistent and enthusiastic approach, I will proceed to get better and get their mind off of winning, but more on the process of here and now. There is no past. There is no future. There's really only the present moment. But the technology makes us always worried about something else that's fleeting. So if today, right now, I'm teaching inside zone and the double team goes here and the back's path is A gap to A gap, that's it. That's all you need to know. And it's a beautiful thing when they're not inundated with too much data.
Right.
From my perspective, it's seeing the kids achieve. And I think our football team has been the one place where we've not had a great deal of success for whatever reason. And we're looking to change that. And I think that we absolutely can. And to see our kids excited to get to the chance to make the playoffs or see kids progress, get some wins where we maybe haven't in the past and compete at a different level, that right there would be a huge win for me, because our kids believe that they can do that. I believe it. I know Coach believes it. I know our community is yearning for it. And all it takes is one play, one practice, one win, one season that you haven't had before to get over that hump. I mean, the dynasties and the great teams and the great programs didn't start overnight. I mean, when I was in high school, North Shore football was not on the map. Now, the basketball team was fantastic. But a couple of years after that, different coach, different mentality, different style of approach. And now, year in, year out, they're perennial state champions.
Mainstay.
Absolutely.
And to shout out to Kyle's alma mater and Katie, same thing. They started somewhere. There was a start to what that work is. And that's what we want to do. We want to build that start. And with Coach's help, I think we can do that. And very optimistic, I think, for our future, for our kids.
Well, folks, you heard it here first. Dr. Rick Fernandez personally guarantees a national championship in the very first. No.
Yeah.
So.
U-Haul.
So.
Coach, tell us about the football culture you come from.
Pretty much every high school's got 5 football teams. There's 2 freshman teams, 2 JV teams, and a varsity team. Katy, in particular, I think they have 400 plus football players, if I'm not mistaken. Seven Lakes is around 285, something of that nature. But really, when you're talking about the professionalism of a sport, the path from, 6th grade and younger through varsity athletics, and the real challenge in Katy, in particular, is there's so many schools. I think they're going to open their 10th school really soon. So Katy High School in particular has an advantage because they're able to really foment the great culture of people coming in, the small town culture with big, results at the end. So
sure.
In our district, that's what we're trying to do, create that kind of that pipeline. You have to recruit your own feeder pattern. The days where kids are just going to go because that's long gone. But the professionalism, and you're talking about football, the succinct progression from 7th grade to 12th grade was really beneficial. I'm really grateful, actually, that I was in a district with that kind of mentality and professionalism and coaching staff and that sort of thing, and administration as well.
Outstanding.
So, would you rather
Yes.
hit a home run, dunk a basketball in the fast break in a game, or break a long run for a touchdown? Like, in terms of a sports moment, hit a home run in a big game, dunk a basketball in a big game in a fast break, or take a 80-yard handoff to the house for a touchdown?
If you've done one of those, would you exclude that?
No. I mean, if you're
talking about like something you've never done. I've never hit a home run in a big game. I've had a long touchdown run.
I've never caught a touchdown pass, or ran a foot touchdown. So
is that what you would go with?
No, dunking a basketball.
But you've done that 1,000 times.
I know. But still, I think it'd be better than, it's just different to me.
Really? You don't want an 80-yard run to see that 6'7" guy galloping down the field? That would be gold.
No. I've hit a home run, not in a big game. I've hit a home run, but I dunk in basketball in the games. Just
shows your love for basketball. I like it.
I'm biased. Ben, what do you think?
So to me, what it's going to come down to is, and this is me being a nerd, is what's the game leverage? Like, how big a deal is it? And I'm just going to choose based on, like, do I get to win the game with a home run? Because there's not a lot better than that.
You get to win. Yeah, it's a walk-off. or a steal.
Man.
Stealing like with 5 seconds left to go.
That's a great question.
Stealing home play.
Or it's the last play for a breakaway run or something. It's all the same level of accomplishment, I guess you could say.
You're on your own 1 yard line and the clock runs out and you go all to the other end zone.
I think busting it. I think breaking the long run, the walk-off long touchdown. I don't think there's anything better than that. What is it? What is it for you? What's your answer?
Oh, dunk it
the basketball,
the steal.
Just think if you're in your own end zone, they're going to snap the ball, clock, and you go 99 yards.
That's probably
just put a dagger in it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe.
I mean, that'd be, I'm just saying.
Although, man, the dunk, I've only dunked in a game half a dozen times, and
that would be 6 more times than me.
to take one coast to coast and win the game with a dunk.
Yeah, that would cool.
That would be incredible.
I was curious. I had to throw that out there. So.
I like it.
Yeah.
Coach O'Neal.
Yes, sir.
To use a question we always close with on the Maze Mastercast, anyone you'd like to send some good bull today?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, I want to thank Katie Ass, the athletic director, Debbie Decker. She mentored me in how to interview and what people are trying to do. And so you're learning like the necessities of an athletic program. Our campus principal, Carrie Finnison, who roots for her staff to grow. She's not trying to prevent anybody from doing that. In fact, she's a huge advocate. And then the head football coach and athletic director, Jamie Hammond. Over the last 3 years, we've had, countless hours of conversation about what it means to be a coach and a mentor and how to administer things. My next one goes to Dr. Fernandez. I appreciate him. His heart is huge. It is for kids. It's not like an if this district's going to be elite. It's just a when. I really respect that. The school board also, you can tell the love for their kids is deep. And lastly, I've got to thank my wife, Lisa. I love her deeply. For her to support this all the way, it means a lot. And then my kids, Clay, Cameron, and Carson, who've always supported their dad in his crazy efforts. We don't have it'd take at least 2 more shows to talk about all things I've done with my kids, but I love them deeply. They support me in everything we do. And I hope that shows in the job that we do here.
Coach, one of our pushes is getting our message and our brand out there. So how can our parents, our faculty, our administrators keep up with what you're doing in terms of our football and all athletics?
Right now, everything's going to be on the athletic Twitter page for Tuloso. The football Twitter page will be up very shortly, and we'll be able to get through there. In the fall, we'll probably some sort of a Sports U app is probably what we're going to go with. That is really, it's basically a remind for athletics, very effective. That way we can communicate directly. We don't have to worry about, the rain changes or something like that.
And the Twitter handle for athletics?
@T_M athletics.
Coach O'Neal.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, your forthrightness, your candor, and your wisdom.
Appreciate you very much. I hope to see you guys in the future.
And we appreciate Dr. Fernandez for connecting us. What a great discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you.
What a guy. Kris O'Neal.
He's got a little bit of energy, doesn't he?
Sure does. Sure does. I thought we've always spent a fair bit of time talking about social, but I think social media was a particularly important aspect of the discussion today. Your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously that's going to be something that we have to contend with and teach about for kids and adults for that matter. But as I stated, the big draw for someone like Coach O'Neal and why we find value in his leadership is the mentorship piece, the teaching piece. And then also he's a great football coach, but he's going to do great things for kids regardless. if he's on the football field, in the classroom, in the hallways, and that's extremely important to us.
Well, as you said on the show, getting the right people in place is really what it's all about. And it's Jim Collins. It's good to great. It's right people on the bus, right people in the right seats. And, I couldn't be more impressed with the decision you've made in that respect.
I think we've hit a home run with this. So I'm very excited to have him, and it's going to be a great year.
We spent a fair bit of time talking about cultivating trust from athletes, from students, and also from teachers and administrators. There's definitely an art to that in this day and age. Connectability is at its highest, yet we've never been more distant from each other. So I think that was a particularly important piece of today's conversation.
Well, you heard Coach talk about just how students are inundated with information, social media, what they hear, what they see, and a lot of the self-worth that sometimes kids put into that. And we got to have people that can help with that process of how do you break it down? How do you understand the importance or lack of importance from negative comments? And Coach O'Neal not only is going to be a great coach, but a great mentor and leader to teach our kids how to deal with the new things that the world's going to throw at them. So very excited to have him here as a leader for our kids.
He's a person who seems intensely comfortable in his own skin.
Yes. And as you discussed, he's had a lot of adversity in his life. Yeah. And there's value in that because our kids are going to have adverse situations and we can't run from that. We can't hide from that. We've got to be equipped to help them deal and cope. And that's never going to change as being an educator. So like he said, it's the kids first and their well-being comes first.
Absolutely. What else are you excited about around the district?
So I'm excited. We're back in school and going to get a running start into the 21-22 school year. So the kids are back. The teachers are excited. There's a lot of energy in the air and we are very optimistic about 21-22. So it's just exciting. It's just an exciting time here in Tuloso-Midway ISD.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Warrior One podcast. I'm Ben Wiggins on behalf of Dr. Rick Fernandez, the host of your show. Go Warriors, go Cherokees.
You got it.